Hey, Ryan here. I'm here with another vacuum video for you guys, and here I'm just showing a little bit of a comparison between the Hoover Elite 350 here in the apartment that I use a little bit, but it belongs to Focus, or at least the house on Focus or the apartment, and my Rainbow D4C SE vacuum that I got from work for free. It was a trade-in that a customer had brought in. For some odd reason, I'm not sure what they traded it in for. I'm not sure if the customer traded it in for a Serena or a Perfect or something. All I know is that it was traded in. It's not really a video like to show which one's superior to the other. That's not really the point of the video. I know I did videos like that in the past, and seemed to get a lot of negative feedback. So so I've been doing this format where I just show the differences, not really showing what's superior, because each vacuum has its set of advantages and disadvantages based on your preferences or based on your needs. So show some similarities, and pardon for shaking the camera. I'm holding it with two hands. Again, I don't have a tripod. Seems to be running a little joke here. But anyway, what's similar about these, or what these two vacuums have in common, is they're both American-made vacuums. I know really for Hoover, it's not really the case anymore, since most of them are made in China, since they've been acquired by TTI Floor Care, North America. But I mean, Hoover overall, I mean, even today, like some of the Hoovers aren't that bad. I mean, there's some good ones, and there's always some bad ones. And for Rainbow, Rainbow is also the Rainbow is also American made, I should say. Well, every Rainbow is American made. That's kind of what makes them stand out to most other brands. The Hoover Elite 350 was made in September of 1988. The D4C SE, I think, was first made around in 1990, and so they're both kind of relatively similar in age, or close in age. The Hoover is at least, I want to say, 29 years old. Well, no, 28 years old. Actually, will be 29 years old in September. So for a 28 going on 29-year-old vacuum, and that still runs beautifully, I should say. I mean, I've used it before, and it runs smooth. There's no problems at all. And since I've used it, it does a great job. Grooms the carpet really well. Does have a headlight, though that headlight's burned out. I had to figure out how to replace the headlight. I think there's a way. I think I have to pry some tabs or whatever. It doesn't really have screws. But I have to find what kind of light bulb it takes and get a light bulb for it. Though it's not a major issue, it still runs, does great even without a working headlight. And the Rainbow doesn't have a headlight; it just uses, of course, its power head is just plain no headlight. So no need to worry about bulbs. Both have carpet height adjustments. The Hoover's 2 levels. It's low and high. In fact, if I can zoom in, if it's clear enough. Pardon the camera shake. See if I can stabilize it. It says 2-level automatic height adjustment. If you have trouble reading it, you can go ahead and pause the video. That we can read better. But it does say 2-level automatic height adjustment. No, it's not an earthquake. It's me having trouble keeping the damn phone steady. Shaky hands. The Rainbow also has a manual height adjustment, low, medium, and high. I think the only difference is I think it seems a little bit different, because with the Hoover, I think it actually raises and lowers the head, whereas the Rainbow, I think it opens some kind of vent to allow air in. I'm not sure why. I just usually use it on low, since it's mostly a low pile carpeting. It does well, on low, and the power head still works just fine. And I'll show the brush rolls in a little bit. But both are designed that we can adjust the settings for whatever carpet you have. Of course, the Elite is an upright, and which has some advantages. It's easier to store. Some people, with an upright, you push and pull the whole thing. But the Hoover is relatively lightweight, almost like lightweight like an Oric. And I'm guessing that Hoover might have designed the Elite as an answer to the Oric upright vacuum, XL uprights into the 8-pound uprights. Though I'm not exactly sure, but the Elite had proven to be a very popular vacuum that people would have bought over the years because it's lightweight and also because it's energy efficient. Of course, the bag on the front of the bag says energy efficient. You kind of on later models they have a cleaning effectiveness per amp rating, which is usually like between 15. Some of them are like 15.5. The highest I think was 19. Which 19 rating, cleaning effectiveness rating of 19 is actually pretty good for most Hoovers because I think the most powerful Hoover during that time period where they had a cleaning effectiveness rating per amp rating was the Hoover Power Drive, and that was at least 22, maybe 23. The Rainbow doesn't have a cleaning effectiveness rating. That's because, of course, the cleaning effectiveness per amp rating was a Hoover marketing tactic that they kind of used during the early 90s. Kind of like a big, back in the 90s, of course, there was a big old, marketing gimmick with amps. With vacuum cleaner manufacturers raising the amps on their vacuums on subsequent models. Newer models, they, increased it like, might be like 6 amps, and then there's models that were 7 amps or 8 amps, 9 amps, 10 amps, Apparently, I guess getting the customer to think that more amps means more cleaning power, though it's not exactly the case. Of course, it depends on how the vacuum is designed, what the brush wheel is designed, what kind of fan, how the fan is made or designed. Different factors lead into how vacuum performs. But I'll try to let me show you the brush roll real quick between the two. Okay, so you can see here on a Hoover Elite, it's a one brush roll, which I'm pretty sure is still original for the vacuum. And I'm looking to see, I was kind of looking downward to check to see the brushes. And actually, the brushes are actually still pretty good. They're still still nice long brushes. They haven't really gotten really super ultra soft. They haven't really worn down a whole lot. And I think looks like it's 2 rows of brushes here. It doesn't really have a beater bar, though I'm not sure what this big old space is for. Not sure what it is for, but like I said, it actually does groom the carpet really well, and it really gets deep down into the carpet. It's a standard belt drive brush roll. It's a direct air model, so the belt's here, and then the air goes in through here on the side here. It's like on the far side here, and the fan's right here. And so air goes to the fan, goes up into the bag. The Rainbow, this model, at least the power head that I have for it on this one, has the same kind of brush roll. Brushes are kind of just extending out. I might get a better brush roll, or I may get a different power head, to match it. I'm not sure. So it uses 2 rows of bristles and also has 2 plastic beater bars. I guess it was supposed to help agitate the carpet. I guess the beater bars maybe help vibrate the carpet better to loosen up dirt. Not sure where the belt is. I think the belt is in here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in here. This is, of course, a clean air machine, so dirt enters to the power head, goes up the wands. In this case, I have kind of the wand set up because I didn't have an electric wand for it. The previous when it came in, the wand setup it had was in really rough shape. The handle was in really rough shape, and it was supposed to be a trigger type like this. And the handle and the hose setup was in really rough shape. So I had to, use this hose, which we had a spare hose, and so I put that on the Rainbow so that way it would work pretty well. And it does actually do a good job. And sorry, I'm pointing the camera down a little bit. I was setting them back upright. Let me lean this back. And so, yeah, so the brush holes are just a little bit different. Both would seem to do pretty well. Another big difference between the Rainbow and the Hoover, other than the fact that one's a canister, one's the upright, is the bag setup. Not the bag setup, the kind of dirt containment it uses. The Hoover uses a traditional bag setup. It technically uses Type A filter bags, though I currently have a Type Y filter bag inside it, and actually does fit. And I think it's just a little bit shorter. Might be wider, but it's still just a little bit shorter, but it does fit. So if you're kind of, if you're in the store or if you're going, looking for bags and they don't have Type A, but if they have Type Y will fit. And the current Type Y bags that are inside this machine are Type Y HEPA bags. So technically this Hoover has HEPA filtration right now. It actually has a HEPA bag, so it should have better filtration than it normally would with just a regular paper bag. Like, of course, back when this was made, that's all they had was paper bags. Maybe you had the allergen filtration bags, but they weren't, but was nowhere near the efficiency of, like, say, today's HEPA bags. And, of course, a big disadvantage for that, if a Hoover had a Type A filter bag that was just a standard filtration or even just allergen filtration, is that the dust would still, most of the dust would still escape from the bag. Most of the time, even if it's allergen filtration bags, they wouldn't be efficient enough to capture the really tiny dust particles, so the dust would, pass through the paper bags, and especially out of the cloth outer bag, back into the air that you breathe, in which if you have allergies or asthma, it's not exactly, the best case, scenario for you if you have allergies or asthma, because dust can irritate your allergies. But if you're using a HEPA bag, like say Type Y HEPA bags or Type A HEPA bags, I think they do have Type A HEPA available for the Hoover, for Hoover Elites. That can drastically improve its filtration capabilities. The Rainbow is a bagless machine, and it's not like a traditional bagless machine. The Rainbow uses water as its primary source of dirt containment as well as air filtration. That sounds like a new thing, but it's actually been in use for many, many years. I think since the 1930s. I think the late 30s, is when Rexair, the company that makes the Rainbow, introduced water into their machine, into their vacuums. And then somewhere in the 50s, around the late 50s, I think it's 1956 or something like that. Somewhere around that time period, they started naming their vacuums the Rainbow. So instead of just being called the Rexair Cleaner, it was called the Rainbow. And one big advantage of that, of course, being water, is that it traps a lot of the dust and dirt that goes into the vacuum. This does not have a HEPA filter at all. In fact, this vacuum did not use HEPA filters or any kind of physical filters at all. It relies on water to filter out the dust. In which I've used it, and of course I don't have any allergies, so wouldn't be able to actually tell, if it would be, doing a job as in air filtration. But I never really noticed any sort of dirt, musty, dusty smell that you might get from an older vacuum that, doesn't have HEPA filtration. Excuse me. Like the Hoover, I don't notice a musty, dusty smell. If I had used like a regular bag and there was a lot of dirt, you probably might be able to notice. But of course, since it has HEPA, probably, again, that dust would be trapped, so you probably wouldn't notice it at all. But water does a pretty good job of trapping most of the dust. Now, later rainbows, mainly the E series, introduced HEPA filters on the exhaust of their rainbow to better filter out any dust that might escape the water. Like some certain kinds of dust are non-wettable, meaning they can't, the water either just bounces off the water, just is not able to be soaked or wet by the water, so instead it would just pass into the exhaust. So the E series would have a HEPA filter to trap any possible particles that might escape the water. Of course, any new, if you get a newer rainbow today, if you were to get one like brand new, through a demonstration, of course it's going to have a HEPA filter, and the newer rainbows actually are brushless motors, so they don't have to worry about carbon dust. So the HEPA filter on a rainbow, newer E-Series rainbow, especially the newer ones that have brushless motors, that filter would probably stay clean for many, many years as long as it's used under normal use. I definitely wouldn't use this as a wet dry vac or anything, like a shop vac. It is capable of picking up wet or dry messes. Of course, if you have dry messes, you would need to use it would have a standard hose, like a wet hose that's not electric. This one has an electric hose on it, and so it's not suitable for the hose itself is not suitable for wet pickup. You would need a separate hose to do any sort of wet pickup cleaning. But I just use this for just as a regular vacuum for cleaning up, for vacuuming the house. And it does a great job. I just fill it up with water. So it's right above the little post in that water basin, or water pan as they would like to call it. Vacuum it. Vacuum the house, and then when I'm done, I dump it out, rinse it out, and I just let it dry, let it air dry before I put it back in. Of course, with the rainbow, you don't want to keep water inside the vacuum. You don't want to store the rainbow with water inside the vacuum, nor do you want to store it while the basin is slightly wet. Maybe wet. Because the water can evaporate and get in the motor, rust out certain parts, and that wouldn't be good for your rainbow. So basically, the best way to keep a rainbow lasting as long as as possible is, of course, using not using it for what's not intended for. Not trying to use it like a wet dry, shop vac or something like that. Check the water often. Empty the water. If you have to, if it gets too dirty, but just dump it out, put new water in, and you're good to go. A big advantage for that rainbow is that since it doesn't use bags, it doesn't use dirt cups and filters, you're saving money, on having to buy those parts. Like with the Hoover, you'd have to buy, filter bags, when it gets full. When you run out of bags, you gotta go to the store and buy more bags. Which, may not be, a huge inconvenience for some people. The Hoover here in where I live right now, my apartment, it doesn't really get that full. The carpet really doesn't get that dirty. I'm currently the only one that's currently living inside this place, the apartment. So it doesn't really get a whole lot of dirt tracked in. Now, if it was more of heavier traffic areas, then the bag might need change every 1 to 3 months. Basically, the best way, just check the bag often and change it when necessary if it's 2/3 full, or if you notice a loss of performance, if it's not picking up that well. Check the bag, make sure it's, if it's full or close to full, go ahead and change it. Don't try to fill it up over the fill line. Just If it starts getting close to the fill line, just go ahead and change the bag. That way you can keep it lasting longer. And like I said, for Rainbow, just empty it after every use. Let the filter, not the filter, the water pan dry after each use before putting it back together and storing it. So that way, no parts of the Rainbow dry out, not dry out, rust out. Excuse me. The Rainbow also uses a separator, which is a little piece on the Rainbow where it has a bolt it's like a little bolt that you can tighten with a screwdriver. I usually use a screwdriver to tighten the bolt, make sure that separator bolt is as tight as I possibly can get it. That way it just keeps the separator nice and fastened. Check the separator. If it's dirty, rinse it off. I've used it multiple times, the times I've used it, I never had to clean the separator yet. Though it's always a good idea. You just take the separator, clean it out, use an old, if you have an old toothbrush, or you can use that, or get a separate toothbrush. Take a toothbrush. If you just get a separate toothbrush, not the one you brush your teeth with, of course, and just clean, wash it under the sink. Maybe with soapy water, put it in the dishwasher or something like that. Clean it out really good, so that way no dirt gets in the motor. Don't get any mud or crap inside the motor or anything, because that wouldn't be good either. Of course, price, I would say for price range for like a Hoover Elite, brand new, I think it depended on what model you got. I would say it's between $100 and maybe $150, maybe $200 when they were brand new. And I say maybe $200, because right around the $200 range, around the $200 range, that's when had the bigger, heavier Hoover machines that took type Z bags, like the Dimension, Limited, Dirt Finder, Power Drive. Those models, for example, would cost a little over $200, but they were pretty good. They had they probably had more features, maybe better brush rolls or anything. But for a Hoover Elite, normally it was between 100, maybe 150, at max maybe 200 at max when they were brand new. You might be able to find one on eBay or probably somewhere, maybe used yard sale or somebody might have a Hoover for sale, Elite for sale for like pretty cheap, or maybe a thrift store would have them. Hoover used to have commercial Elites for a long time, and actually until 2013 is when they actually discontinued it. The commercial Elite uprights, which I thought was stupid because, come on, they're Hoover Elites. They're not, they're decent machines, and, if they were still being made, at least even just for commercial use, hell, that'd be great. You can buy a commercial Elite, and at least it would last a really long time. Because for a commercial vacuum being used in a residential setting, like, here, it'd be almost like, light duty, like a stick broom. The Rainbow, what is a lot more expensive, and they are still a lot more expensive. How expensive? I would say you're looking between maybe $2,000 or $3,000. That's expensive. Very expensive. $3,000 for a Rainbow, and you think, well, wait a minute, $3,000 for a Rainbow or $100 for a Hoover Elite. Of course, some people are like, well, I'm just going to go for the Elite because that's cheaper. And yeah, that's the case, but I think the reason why the Rainbow normally costs like $3,000 is because I think it's a lot of it has to do with like all the middlemen. The Rainbows aren't sold like Hoover is. Rainbows are sold door to door, whereas Hoovers are sold in retail stores. Now, back when Hoover was in its early days or early years, especially during the 20s, the 30s, at least up to the 50s, either up to the 50s or up to the 60s, they were also sold door to door, and actually have an Hoover Aerodyne that was featured in a video on YouTube. One of my videos on YouTube that actually was made during the door-to-door period that Hoover, did for sales. But Rainbow still does door-to-door. Basically, they have this, the manufacturer, then there's the distributor, or I'm not sure if it's a wholesaler or if it's just a distributor. An authorized distributor would get the Rainbows, and then they have all these salesmen that they pay commissions to, to sell the Rainbows door to door to potential customers. And of course, probably, costs of operations, just makes it very expensive. And plus, so the Rainbow, they sell for $3,000, might not actually be worth $3,000. At most, maybe I would say if it was just a machine itself sold retail, it'd probably sell for maybe $600, $700, maybe $800, which is still quite a bit, but obviously that'd be a lot less. But of course, despite the very high price tag for, for a Rainbow, if once you get a Rainbow, you're pretty much set. It's not one of those vacuums that, break after a year or two or just a few years. Not saying this Elite here breaks after a few years. Actually, considering this was made at a time when vacuums were still well built, and still made in USA, that one's 28 years old, going on 29 years old, and it's still alive and kicking. So that old geezer ain't gonna die yet. Nor is this one. I mean, this one's an old geezer too. I guess for vacuums, I guess 28, 29 years old. That's like senior years. But like I said, for a Rainbow, generally Rainbows, if you take good care of them, or any vacuum, like either the Hoover or this Rainbow, they'll generally last a very long time. How long, I'm not sure, but I would say several decades, 30, I would say for a Rainbow, 30 years, 40 years, maybe 50 or 60 would be pretty decent. But, again, it depends, how much it's used, what you're using it on, stuff like that, But I figured I'd just do that quick comparison video quick. Like I said, the Hoover Elite, I would have to get a light bulb for the light to come up, and I might get that sometime. I have to look, see where I can find it. I think it takes a 12-volt bulb. I know at the shop we have bulbs for Elites that, well, not for just Elites. We do a lot of electronics repairs, and the PN6 power nozzles take a 12-volt bulb, but I think that might be pretty common. And for the Rainbow, I have to get a couple different attachments. I want to get a proper wand set up for this, and get the remaining attachments, the crevice tool, and the upholstery tool for this. I want to get the mini power head, and I might get a proper power nozzle for it. Obviously, one that's not so damn long, because you can see the wand. You see the cord's kind of wrapped up around the wands, because it's a really long cord. I think it was made for D4C. Might have been the older models, or maybe D3. I'm not even sure. But I think that's a different power nozzle, maybe made for a different Rainbow vacuum. It does say Rainbow SC, so I'm not sure. But I'd say, like I said, it does a great job. For me, I love my Rainbow. Enjoy using the Hoover, but also love my Rainbow and the Dyson vacuums that I have. And I'll do a video on the DCL7, compare that to both the Hoover Elite 350 in one video, and I'll compare it to the Rainbow in another video, which will probably be more, similar comparisons, since they have more similarities. But again, like I said, both of these machines are great. They each have their own set of advantages and disadvantages. the Elite, I like using, if I just want to vacuum, and if I really don't want to, feel like, taking a rainbow out and filling it up with water and dumping it. Sometimes it can be a hassle, but not really a whole lot. It's not really that inconvenient. But sometimes I'll use the Hoover, and then, sometimes I'll use the Rainbow as well. So they kind of both are pretty good daily drivers, for vacuuming this wall-to-wall carpet. But that's pretty much a video for today. I will, like I said, I will do more videos in the future. If you feel free to give this a thumbs up if you like. If you liked what you watched, if you enjoyed it, if you learned something, give it a thumbs up. Drop a comment in the comment section. And feel free to subscribe for more videos. I will, like I said, I do. We'll try to do more videos in the future. So until then, this is Ryan signing off. You guys have an awesome weekend.